I want to say hello and good morning to our listeners from around the world. I want to welcome you to another edition of This Morning with Soulivity, broadcasting live from our studio right here in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and on KMET 1490 AM radio in Southern California. My name is Brian Westley Johnson, and I am so glad that you joined us today. We have a very fantastic and amazing show with a great guest. But before we get to that, I want to introduce to you some very special friends and co-hosts, Tami Gaines and Sheila Applegate. Good morning, ladies.
Good
Good morning.
morning.
Woo, we're at the end of the week. We're at the end of
Hallelujah.
yeah. We made it to Friday. Tami, first, I'll go to you. How has your week been?
Really?
Yeah, really. Really.
Challenging.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I usually tamify it and say like it's awesome. But no, it's been a long stretch.
Yeah.
Um I feel like it has something to do with like the weird weather.
Mm-hmm.
It's like almost 90 degrees today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
think it's throwing people off their game a little bit. Like people a little confused.
Like, what the
And
hell?
yeah, and somehow that confusion is falling on me.
What about you, Sheila?
Well, overall, I've had a good week, but I can understand what you're saying, Tammy. I do think that there's some energy shifts in the world because a lot of people are talking about just over emotional or,
Mhm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I got sick this week. So, yeah. But mostly I've been having a great week.
Yeah, and speaking of sick, we want to send out some real healing energy to our other special friend and co-host of us this morning with Soulivity, Candice Harper. She's been down this week with a little bug, and so we want to make sure that we send her well wishes to get well soon.
Get well, Candy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, before we begin, we have again, I'm going to introduce a very special guest in just a second. But before we begin, I want to remind all of our audience that, listen, you are part of this conversation that empowers. We want your questions, your comments, your thoughts. Just post them directly to our chat on Facebook and YouTube. And we'll do some shout outs to wherever you are and whatever's on your mind. So, why don't we begin? So, we have a very special guest, and I'm going to introduce her to you, but this is kind of like very special for me. So, just bear with me, okay, guys? Um, Melva Thomas Johnson is a marriage, couples, and relationship coach and counselor that has more than 4 decades of experience as a psychotherapist, relationship educator, workshop leader, public speaker, co author, and consultant. In fact, with her husband Jesse, she has appeared on many local and national radio and television shows and has been featured in numerous print media. Now, Melva says, I'm committed to supporting healthy relationships. I personally know the ups and downs that couples face, as my husband Jesse and I have been practicing these principles in our marriage for over 40 years. Now, in her recent series in Illumination Magazine on Medium.com, she talks about the importance of people in love relationships to learn how to connect with each other during times of conflict. That most times they have difficulty achieving this connection, leading to emotional pain. She provides the needed answers for people to heal, grow, and move into more love and joy in their relationships. And the best part about all of this today is that this beautiful, wonderful woman is also my mom. So we're going to welcome to the show Melva Thomas Johnson.
Thank
Hello.
you. Good morning.
Good
Good
morning. Rise
morning.
and shine.
Rise and shine.
Yeah. Oh.
And mom, I'm so glad you're here. You have so much to offer in terms of being a expert in love relationships. And I guess my first question to you in regards to this wonderful series on communication in terms of couples, this specific article about not feeling heard hurts. Um, what led you to write this series?
Communication is, no matter what people go through that I work with, and I'm not just talking about clients, I'm talking about, I hear this from friends and relatives. The main complaint that I hear is that people say, you don't listen. You don't hear what I'm saying. You don't get me. And it's such a theme throughout what I even see that and hear that when I'm watching TV, and I love dramas. So when I watch dramas on TV, it's the same general global complaint. And so I thought, since that is such a theme across the board, there's specific things that people can know about that, so that they can know why this happens, what leads to that complaint, and what they can do about it. Because people don't know what they don't know.
Absolutely. Now, Tami, you were talking about that even in your love relationship, you were just having this conversation. So I know you've got a comment, a question.
Yeah. So this is interesting for me. Like, I've done work on myself, and I've been in therapy. And what I realized is, as a child, we weren't allowed to like talk. We weren't allowed to like speak at the table. Like, we had like strange rules at the dinner table. So most of my childhood I went unheard, and that has carried over into like my relationship. So my partner, it's such a trigger when he doesn't, I know he's listening, but he's not hearing me. Do you feel like there's a difference, right? Mom, between being heard and listening? Like, those are two very different things, I think.
Well, yes, because if you don't feel that a person is listening, then you don't feel heard. But here's the thing: we're not wired. Our brains are not wired to listen. Our brains are wired to survive. And so anytime there's a conversation going on, people think that they are totally present with each other, and they are not. People think that they are reacting to whatever is going on, which is only 10% of what's going on. 90% of what's going on is happening beneath the surface. We are wired to survive. So if a person is not listening and you're not feeling heard, it's because they're in their own inner world processing whatever came up for them. So they can't hear you. They can't.
Okay, so are we doomed?
No, not at all. We just need to know what's going on.
Right.
We just need to know what's going on, process it, and come up with a different response. And you can't do it in the moment. You can't do it in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, I was about to say, that sounds like it's easier said than done.
No, it's not easy.
It's not easy at all.
It took me a long time to learn it. And I'm the therapist.
So how did you learn it?
Well, fortunately, Jesse and I learned it together. So it was part of my training. So there's basic things that we learned how to do. And one of them was not to talk when feelings come up when you're not feeling heard. Not to talk. To disengage long enough to take care of what's going on in this inside, for both people to do that. To process all of that, because you're flooded with feelings. You can't come up with a rational thought process when you're flooded with feelings. So taking care of the feelings, thinking them through, because when you're in the heat of the moment, your brain, the most primitive part of the brain, is in charge. People think that they're logically in charge of what's going on, but they're not. It's like the brain hijacks each person when the experience of not feeling heard occurs.
Wow, that's makes a ton of sense, actually.
Yeah.
Sheila?
Well, I love what you're saying, Melva. Excuse me. The idea that I often say is that everybody wants to be understood. And I think that when you talk about hearing, that is the level that you're talking about. And I love the difference between listening and hearing, and then understanding is that next layer. And to me, that takes a level, like we were talking about, that it takes a level of empathy and being able to put yourself in the other person's position and feelings, which sometimes needs time, right? Because first you got to get through your own. How would you talk about that?
Yeah. So the first thing is to stop talking. To stop talking. I call it take an adult time out. And when you take an adult time out, you're taking time to go into reflective mode so that you can access logic and become rational. But you have to attend to all of those feelings. You have to monitor what you're thinking, because in the moment your brain has you looking at your partner as somebody crazy, somebody negative, somebody out to get you. You know, you have to look at that and say, wait a minute. Well, yeah, it does feel like that right now, but you know what? Maybe that's not true. Maybe they're not crazy. Maybe they're not out to get me. And then change the response. It's like, okay, so what do I want in this situation? I need to let them know that something is happening here. I need to find out what's going on with them. Let's talk about that. And then we can get back to whatever the issue is. Because you got to get out of survival mode. You have to get out of defensive mode.
Right.
That's such a simple, it's such a simple theory, which is like retreat, so that cooler minds can prevail. But that's never our knee-jerk reaction.
and see, that's the thing, to expect that when you get triggered, that all of the stuff is going to be exploding on the inside. So it's important to take care of that first. It's like, you know, I need time, because if you try to talk when you're flooded with feelings, the wrong thing is going to come out of your mouth, and you're going to hurt each other. But when you retreat, and it takes a while sometimes, you know, those feelings, when you're flooded with a lot of negative feelings, it takes a while for those feelings to subside, because you have to get to that part first so you can start thinking about what's going on. It's like, wow, what happened here? First, what happened within me? What happened within me? What got triggered? A whole lot of stuff gets triggered. And what most people don't know is they're not triggered just in the moment. It's like every single time in their life when they felt that way is revealed. It's unconscious. So you're responding and reacting to all of your history. All of your history, not just what's going on in the moment. So to get in touch with that and say, okay, all right, so what is really going on here? When you figure that out, what it is for you, then figure out what it is that you want. Then that's when you can say that whenever this happened, this is what came up for me. This is what I needed. Can you hear me now?
You know,
and they need to have an opportunity to say that too.
You know, I think you just brought up something that I think that we want to continue in the next segment, and that is this history, this thought of history, right? I don't think people really get how our history as children and how we were socialized and all the kind of value sets come into play with this. So, Mom, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to move into another dynamic around when people become in love relationships, become empty nesters. That's also something. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more of This Morning with Soulivity. We'll be right back, everybody. Hey there, this is Brian with Soulivity.com. I want to share some exciting news about our new Aspire Academy by Soulivity. Now, you probably want to know what the Aspire Academy by Soulivity is. Well, it exclusively connects you with people around the globe and who share the intense desire to improve themselves and create a better life for themselves today. There's classes, there's workshops, there's live events, and even more exclusively just for you. You see, I wanted you to have a safe space where you could grow, you can learn, and it would empower you in all aspects of your life, including your mind, your body, and your soul. So how do you get started? Well, it is so easy. First of all, the best part, joining Aspire Academy is absolutely free. Just click on the Join Now button, sign up, and begin your journey. As a special part of this invitation to you, there are some free courses that are available for you to try from our amazing roster of coaches and collaborators. It's our way of saying thank you for all of your support and being with us along our journey of expansion. I hope you enjoy the Aspire Academy by Soulivity today. Start the process. Learn more about your passion, your purpose, and how to live a higher quality life. And welcome back to This Morning with Soulivity. We're talking about how in your love relationship, how not feeling heard hurts and what to do about it with relationship coach and counselor and author Melva Thomas Johnson, who's also my mom. Mom, can you talk a little bit about the dynamic of how this is connected to our own personal history?
Yeah. So earlier, who said it?
Tami.
Tami. When you said that you couldn't really say anything, we're all, most of us are programmed that way. And here's the thing: our parents and our caretakers, they just want us to grow up as decent human beings, and so they have figured out what kind of structures would help us to develop that during our growth and development phase. And so they don't want us to be rude. They don't want us to talk out of turn. They want us to be polite. They want us to be kind. And so they think that they're protecting us when they're teaching us how to, what is one of the phrases? Don't talk back. What are some of the messages that we get?
Seen and not heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Right. So we grow up learning that that's the way of life. But what does not get attended to, because nobody really knows, is that when we can't be heard, when we have something on our hearts and no one is listening, and we're told that we have to squelch whatever we're thinking and feeling, that hurts. And so when we find a way to adapt to the hurt, and the way that we adapt to hurt is that we shut down, and not only are we learning how or teaching ourselves what to do when we don't feel heard, we also put ourselves in the position not to hear. Because when you are triggered, you just can't hear what anybody else is saying. You're just overwhelmed with the feelings that you're having about what you're experiencing in the moment and what you're not getting in the moment. And when that's happening with both people, and see, parents don't even know that that's going on. They think that they're being good teachers.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Talking about that, it brings up a point from the last segment, because we were talking about how it's good to take a break and to process your own feelings so you can hear each other, but that has to be sort of set up beforehand, because if you just go silent and don't communicate the process, then I think that would trigger the childhood response. Do you feel, how do you help couples to prepare for those moments before they come?
Yeah. So first I teach people what is going on. Then I teach them what to do about it. And so it's almost like developing a practice, like a yoga practice. Mm-hmm. It's like preparing your mind. It's like, I know that I'm going to get triggered. Something is going to trigger me. So I need to have my own strategy about how I'm going to take care of myself so that I can be totally present when that happens again. Mm-hmm. Because it is going to happen. I am going to be flooded with feelings. I am going to start thinking about this person as in not too kindly terms. And I will have an urge to either tell them off or get away from them. And so I want to take care of that first. I want to come up with my own strategy about how I'm going to deal with that when it happens again, because it's going to happen again and again and again. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. I'm curious about, it's interesting. I'm stuck in this whole idea of like retreating. Uh-huh. So after we had this, I don't know if you were even on, I was saying that I literally had this conversation with my partner on Saturday. And then he said, okay, I'm going to let you talk. And then he just stopped talking. I was like, are you listening? He's like, yeah, I'm letting you talk. You asked for me to let you talk, so I'm letting you talk. And he literally just stopped talking.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious about your thoughts about that, because I know retreat is important, but not talking back is also, that can't be helpful.
Well, that's his defense. That's his defense. It's like, okay, and he's trying to make peace. He's trying to say, okay, so you need to talk. I'm going to let you talk. It doesn't mean that he's in a position to listen yet. Mm-hmm. So here's the thing. When couples are having, when two people are having a conversation and somebody gets triggered and they're not talking about what just happened, it's like, wait a minute, this is the ideal. I just got triggered. I need to take care of that first, and then I can hear you. Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen. If people can say that, because if your partner can say, I'm just going to let you talk, they're not saying, I'm going to let you talk and I can listen. Right. Mm-hmm. I'm going to let you talk because I can't win. That's what Jesse used to say.
I created my own booby trap.
Right. I can't win. Just let her go. Just let her talk.
So I have another. I'm sorry. A question. And now you're my personal therapist. I pinged Brian. I'm like, your mom just became my personal therapist. But I also think everything you're saying, it's not about just love relationships. Like, I have 4 kids, and they all respond. I mean, hopefully I didn't do too much damage to them, but they're young enough where we can use these tactics, and we do. But what if you don't know somebody's history? Like, what if you don't know what might trigger somebody because I don't know, like, just, you know what I mean?
You can know their history and still get triggered. So just know that is part of the human condition. We were born and wired. I mean, it's not even our fault. I mean, this is the way that we were born. We're wired. We're not wired to connect. We're not wired to listen and hear each other out. We have to learn how to do those things. So when we know, when we know better, we do better. Dr. Angela, Maya Angelou. Yeah. We don't know that in the moment that a whole lot of stuff is coming up for us and a whole lot of stuff is coming up for the other person. A part of intimacy, one of the wonderful things that I enjoy about intimacy is really getting to know yourself first and know what triggers you, not just what triggers you, but what makes you feel loved and cared about. And so to know what happens when you get off track feeling that, so that you can talk about it. When both people can do that, it's like, and talk about, this is just what happened. You don't even have to go into the history. If you understand that both people are living in two different countries of reality, and sometimes when communication breaks down, one person is speaking French and the other person is speaking Italian, and
Yeah.
you agree that this is the time to learn each other's love language because you love and care about each other. It's like, oh, I need to know first what's going on with me so I can share that with you in a way that you can hear it. And I need to know what's going on with you so I can respond to that, because if we get off track, we know what to do, because we are going to trigger each other again. But we know that the other person is not coming from a place of negativity. We know that the other person is not out to get us. We know that the other person is vulnerable right now. Let's talk about that. Let's get through that so that we can move forward and reconnect and repair the damage, because we hurt each other.
Yeah.
That's like one of the keys, right? Repairing the damage.
Yeah.
I think the cleanup is the hard part.
And it can also be the fun part.
Oh, it's definitely the fun part. Yeah, we usually solve that in just one way. But in general.
and there's something about how good that feels. So soothing. It's like healing balm. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Really? That was what was going on with you? Oh my God, I didn't know that. Oh, so I can see. Oh, see, here's the thing. Here's the key. Here's the secret. The secret.
Everybody leans in.
Everybody, I'm leaning in right now. I'm on top of my computer.
So when people learn how to become a tourist in each other's country, to get to really know each other at a deep soul level and know what's going on and know the facts of their experience. Feelings are not facts. What's going on within the reality and country of the other person, those are facts to know. And those are facts to make sense out of. In my work, we call it validation. It's like, okay, I heard all of what you were experiencing and it makes so much sense to me. Oh my God, I can see why you were upset. And then I'm imagining this is what you were feeling. Yeah, imagining maybe you were feeling frustrated, angry, hurt, are any of those feelings accurate? Yes or no? And if the person says no, they can tell you what you're feeling. That disarms, just those three things, disarms people. And then when you can take care of that part, and you may or may not talk about your history, you're talking about what's happening in the here and now. But when you share your history, you're getting a chance to know that person more intimately. It's like, wow, I didn't know that that's what you were experiencing in the moment. I didn't want, I can see how my reaction was hurtful to you. And next time when this happens, I'm going to respond differently because I'm going to go into reflective mode before I say anything or do anything that's going to be hurtful.
I think that is such a great point. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sheila.
No, you got it.
Well, okay, you guys are going to think I'm crazy, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because I am borderline crazy, I think.
I love
that. My partner didn't call me for like 3 days, didn't return calls. Like, I flipped out. And it turned out, whatever, he's just busy. He's super busy. He's a Wall Street guy, all the banking stuff that was going on. He's like, why are you going so crazy? And I said, like, I have like separation anxiety from when I was a kid. Like, my dad took a trip. My dad was an attorney, and he had to go to some other country, and they had a coup, and he didn't come home for like 6 weeks.
Wow.
He was supposed to be gone for like a week.
Wow.
So when I told him that, he was like, oh my God. He's like, you should have told me that. Like, I understand. Do you know what I mean? But that's not a normal conversation that would come up. Like, hey, let me tell you what happened when I was 6.
But those are the conversations we need to have.
And then, and notice his response. See, that gives you a clue that you were on the right track. He invited you to tell you about what was happening in your country. And then he understood. It's like, oh, I didn't know that, because I was just thinking about what I would need to do at work. I was taking care of this and taking care of that. I had no idea. I was in my country over here taking care of this. I had no idea that was going on in your country.
Well said.
I love the way this flows in, Tami, with that example, the feeling that comes from the joy when you are heard and understood. And I'm thinking about I'm thinking about when my partner, Zach, came in. It was right actually before my kids left the nest. So literally months before my first child left. So we were doing the get to know each other and figuring all that out while I was grieving, the launching of my children. But I'm thinking with couples who have been together that whole time, there's still a new getting to know you after your kids leave the nest. So how do you talk about that?
Yeah, and that's an important time to start using these tools, because all the stuff that didn't get attended to while the kids were there because you were busy parenting, all of that stuff comes up when they're gone. And then and it comes up in such an intense way because it's been simmering and simmering and simmering, and by the time the kids are gone, it's up to a slow boil.
Sheila, that's so funny. Like, my dad had a calendar for each of us circled. He had the date circled, 18 and out. That is all we heard, 18 and out.
Yeah.
There's no grieving over here. Just get out.
I remember Jesse was telling me one time his assistant retired, and at the end of the school system. And so when they had a big retirement party for her and what have you, and then in September she was back at work. And so Jesse said, wait a minute, you just retired a few months ago. She said, yes, and I was home with this man. He got on my nerves so much I have to get out of that house. That's stand being at home with them. So people have to figure out a way to be together after the kids are gone. I mean, because you develop the habits of parenting and taking care of all of that. But since you're so busy, it is so difficult sometimes to get back to the romance, to get back to the getting to know each other. Because as empty nesters, you're different people by then. Both of you are mature. Right. And so you really have to get to know each other again. You have to figure out how you want your life to be together.
I'm curious about your thoughts about the pandemic. So there was a spike in divorce during the pandemic because I think we were all locked up, right? With whoever we were with.
Yeah.
So it feels like some people were like, I loved being locked up with my partner. We had a great time. It was awesome. But why the spike in like divorce rates?
I'll tell you what, why don't we take a break?
Oh, sorry, Brian.
And then we'll come back and we'll come right back to this because I think that's fascinating because I also was looking at that. I was going to ask you that too, Mom. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll have more with Melva Thomas Johnson and Not Feeling Heard. We'll be back in just a second.
Have you ever asked the question, if I was to be anything, what would I be? Regardless of money, regardless of status, beyond popularity and fame, living your passion, feeling your life has purpose. Soulivity is a space to nurture that which lives in all of us. A place where work can become play, and doing what we love creates the dreams of a lifetime.
And we're back with more of This Morning with Soulivity. Tami, you just asked a great question that I was also going to ask about separation and divorce rates going up during COVID. So that means we're
Mhm.
all living together. And so, Mom, what do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, for some people, it was wonderful.
Right. Right.
Because they got a chance to spend more time together. And, we hear mostly about what went wrong during COVID. I think the stats show that there were more pregnancies during
Yeah.
COVID.
Mhm.
So some folks got together.
Of course.
Some folks got together.
You can only play but so much Scrabble.
Right. Right. So that's for that population, for that group. And then there was another group. It's like being together all day with each other's good habits and bad habits. And since mostly we pay attention to what's going wrong, we're wired for paying attention to negativity. Then little habits, big habits start getting on people's nerves. And then the stuff that has not been dealt with in the past, that comes up. And then it comes up in such an intense way, and couples find themselves, families find themselves arguing. And then sometimes if you don't have enough space where you can think on your own, it's like people are getting on your nerves because they're in the space. You don't have any time to think, to get away, So a lot of people broke up during that time, and they didn't have a way to navigate all of that. And then, the people getting sick, all the stress of how to cope with, you can't have your normal life. That comes out when you're trying to just have a cup of coffee and relax. You can't do it. A lot of people couldn't do it. And if you don't have any communication skills, then all you're going to do is argue. And that happens to a lot of folks. So, situations, relationships bring out the best and the worst in all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when we can't deal with that, the worst part, it affects our relationships.
Yeah.
So this is a philosophical question. Do you
Okay.
think if we weren't forced into a lockdown, that some of these couples would have still been together because they would have figured out like how to cope or something?
Not necessarily, because whatever, see, when people have to leave and go to work, then they don't have to deal with each other. But when they're captured in the same environment, it's like, stuff comes up.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes up intensified, magnified,
Mm-hmm.
and it becomes overwhelming. So to answer your question,
like, do you feel like do you feel like it was inevitable? And maybe and Brian, definitely chime in. Like, do you feel like the pandemic like put us into this weird environment where people were like, I can't stand you, I got to get divorced, and if we weren't in it, maybe they'd still be together.
Or get divorced later.
Yeah, here's my thoughts on it, and it goes back to something. Mom, we did with Dad this series on being a team player at home and at work.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, Tami, that if you're not dealing with how to deal with when you're not feeling heard and you're getting triggered, that doesn't stop just because you're not at home. You take that with you, because your psychology is your psychology wherever you go.
Mm-hmm.
So you find when you're with people that you're working with, then it comes out there. So it's always there. And so I'm thinking that just because you're at work doesn't mean that you're not dealing with it. Right?
Gotcha.
You're not dealing it with that person who's your close person, but you're still dealing with it. Because I know how many times have you had a coworker or a colleague that just got on your last nerve because they weren't listening?
Yesterday. By the way, it's only 8:30 in the morning, so
Right.
Bound to
Right.
happen again.
Right. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that
Interesting.
and it goes to something that I was going to ask you, Mom, around what was the I mean, I think we're getting a sense of why you wrote this series, and we have the series on our chat, so if people want to go read it, they can go through the article. It's seven different articles, Mom.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm forwarding this right now.
Yeah. What is it specifically that you want people to take away from as they're reading through this series on Medium?
Yeah, the main thing is relationships at home and at work provide an opportunity for each individual to kind of take their own inventory. We're programmed to focus on what the other person is doing or not doing. And we spend less time looking at how we're showing up in life, how we're showing up when things are going well, and how we're showing up when things are not going well, like during conflict. And if we take our own inventory and pay attention to how we're showing up, and asking ourselves the question, is this the best version of myself that I'm bringing to the table? And if not, why not? And what can I do about it? Because intention is probably one of the most powerful things that I know and focus on. If we intend to be, who was it that said, was it the Dalai Lama? Be the change you want to see. So if each person is thinking about how they want to contribute to, okay, so I'm getting esoteric. Okay. How
No, I think you're going down exactly the right road. It's awesome.
Exactly.
when people are thinking about how I want to contribute to bringing love to the world, bringing love to the situation, bringing my best to the situation, so that we all benefit, not just me, not just me. And when I'm not when I'm not getting what I need, then I need to learn how to ask for it, and ask for it a way that the other person can hear. And whether they do something about it or not, I know that I did my part. And if I don't get what I want, then just know that I'll be okay. I would love to have it. But I'll be okay if I don't get it. But I'm still going to show up. I'm still going to show up as my best self, because I benefit. Now, other people will too, but I benefit the most.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Wow.
It's so good. I'm like reflecting back just in my head over not just with my partner, but just with people, whether it's at work or in life. Like, was I showing up as my best self every single time for every single interaction? I think that's a really great question to ask.
Yeah. And know
Like,
and know that every time I get triggered about something, it's my opportunity for growth. And that when I do something that is growth producing, it's going to be healing for me as well as the other person.
Wow.
It feels like, now this is going to be like really philosophical. You both watch the news. I always think when I'm watching like what's going on like in Congress, or there's like some conflict, like fundamentally it does come down to communication. It's not right. It's not like Democratic or Republican. It's like y'all are communicating poorly.
Yeah. It also comes down to values.
Right.
What do people value most? So, like what you were telling me, saying about in the news, that is what we see what I see over and over again is people in Congress, people in many areas of life value power, not people, power. And however they can maintain and sustain their power, that becomes their intention. and they're not aware of the fact that people get hurt in the process.
Right.
They're not thinking about compassion or empathy. They're not thinking about understanding. They're seeking to be understood. And they go into defensive mode.
And they stay there, right?
Yeah.
And they stay there, and then
They dig
yeah,
in.
and then that becomes their way of living, that I've got to control everything and everyone through my own value set.
Yeah.
Right?
People become self-absorbed.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I guess to tie it back to what we were talking about, I was wondering if that was the one question we ask ourselves when we get up in the morning.
Yeah.
Am I going to show up as my best self today?
Yeah.
And that is what I feel like I think a lot of those people don't do.
Wow.
Yeah. Only because they don't think about it. No one has said, think on these things. Okay. I'm going to share this. It might be premature, but I'm going to share it. So,
all right. Does Brian need to hang up?
No. So I thought about that for a long time, just in my quest and in my journey for knowing that I'm human and knowing that, sometimes there's a part of me that I really don't want to show up, but if I don't take care of it, it will. So, I thought about, so what are some things that I can think about that will keep me on track in alternative to being reactive? So this is a shameless plug. Brian, you didn't know I was going to say this.
You plug away.
I love it already. I don't know what's going to happen, but I love it.
So one of the things that I did, and Jesse and I worked on it together, and we came up with 366 ways to show up as your best self. So I didn't even know that there were, we gave ourselves a challenge to come up with 366 ways, alternatives to being reactive. Alternatives to going into reactive mode, because when you go into that reflective mode after you've been reactive or before, then you need to have alternatives, because I can show up this way, or I can show up this way, or this way, or this way, or this way, or this way. So
can you give us like 3 maybe?
Yeah.
That are on your list?
Yeah, Brian, you remember any of them? Okay, so to relate to what we're talking today. So one is I am loving. I am present. They are I am statements, because the brain responds to what you say after you say I am. I am compassionate. I am considerate. I am kind. Yeah. Just natural positive characteristics. And when people have alternatives to think about and to reflect on about how, they can say, I'm at the fork of the road. I can take the road less traveled and try to show up this way and this way and this way, or I can take the road most traveled and just be reactive and mow down anybody who's in my way, who is not listening to me, who's not caring to me, who's not thinking about me. And that takes time. And it takes time to go into reflective mode to take that choice and make that choice. And sometimes we don't want to do that. Sometimes we're so flooded with emotion. It's like, no, not today. Not today. Today, I am going to be defensive. Today, I'm going to take care of myself because that person was wrong. And I'm going to get him back. But, even with that, to bless that part of us too, because that is a part of all of us. It's like, yep, I can't show up that way. But, today I think I'll go this way.
So speaking of going this way, you're coming back, right? You're going to come back on, right? And talk to us on another episode. In fact, Tami, I'm thinking that Mom just needs to be a regular every once in a while.
Yeah, I'm thinking I need to get my man on the show for the next one.
My man's. Get my man's on here. Oh man, listen, we're running out of time. Listen, Mom, Melva Thomas Johnson. I want to make sure I keep telling her name, Melva Thomas Johnson. Listen, thank you for being here. We're gonna have you back on because I think these are subjects that we don't really talk about. I think there's this world in kind of fantasy where, you know, we're taught that, you know, you meet this person, you connect, and then you ride off into the sunset, and then everything is fine from that point forward. And that when these things pop up, you're like scratching your head, like, I thought everything was supposed to be fine, right? And that what we experienced when we first got together is just supposed to last forever, and that it will evolve, and that what you're talking about is helping us evolve ourselves and our relationships so that we can have more love, more peace, more joy in our lives. And so thank you for being here.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I just want to say in closing that what happens after the romantic stage is supposed to happen.
Right.
What you do about it is the most important thing.
Right.
Thank you for all the wisdom. You were amazing.
Thank you. So nice to meet you.
Oh man.
You too. We'll be on your doorstep.
So Brad,
Yeah.
I have to get up early again?
Yeah, you got to get up again. Yep, again. See what happens? See, people fell in love with you again. Listen, everybody, we're almost at the end of our show, but I just again want to say thank you to our guest Melva Thomas Johnson for sharing deep information about what to do when you're not feeling heard, specifically in your relationships. Again, we're going to have her back to talk more about this. I want to remind everybody that, listen, please follow us on social media and join our mailing list by visiting our This Morning Soulivity landing page at soulivity.com/this-morning. You can learn about what's happening, what future shows are going to be on, as well as get access to exclusive content and maybe learn about some giveaways that are going on. Again, thank you for being here. Tami, this was a great show.
It really was. And by the way, I feel like maybe the universe put your mom in my life today because I needed it.
Well, that's the way it goes.
It's so nice to meet you.
You too. We'll talk again.
Okay.
Listen, everyone. Listen, on behalf of all of us here at This Morning with Soulivity, we want to say thanks for joining us for another episode. We hope that you come back and join us every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern for our live broadcast, or you can listen to us at 9 a.m. Pacific on KMET 1490 AM radio for all of you out on the West Coast. Don't forget to download the KMET audio application to even gain greater access. And until next time, keep on having real conversations with passion and purpose, and we'll see you next time.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent. All other rights reserved.